everyone, a warm welcome to today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us on LinkedIn from all over the world today. My name is Joanna. I'm working as a project manager at the UX Design Awards and the IDZ International Design Center, Berlin. This is actually the first deep dive of the season, where we present award-winning solutions within UX. And today we will be focusing on a very exciting concept award winner, namely SpaceV, Space-Vending System for Future Wellbeing by VLab. And I will be joined today by Tiange Wang, who's a spatial designer and director at VLab, as well as Tiange Wang, who's a software designer at IDEO and also director at VLab. Just a short snippet about the format. So this is our virtual event series, which are called Deep Dives and Talent Tracks, where we invite award-winning designers and teams to share knowledge about their work to the UX design community in order to learn from each other, get inspired, and start conversations. That said, please do feel free to join in and ask questions on the LinkedIn comments in the chat, and I will do my best to bring it into the conversation after VLab has presented their work. So once again, a warm welcome, and I hand it over to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joanna, for introducing us. And it's a great honor to be here. And we're so happy that we get to be able to share this project with you all. And it's a great honor to receive this award, UX Design Award in the concept category. So without further ado, I'll start. And before we get into the project, I'll have a little bit intro to for both of us, and then we'll dive into the project. Give me a thumbs up if you're seeing my screen. Awesome. Okay. So cool. And yeah, so this work is going to be brought to you by myself, Tiange, and also Yan, my collaborator. And so a little bit about me. I'm a multidisciplinary designer and creative technologist. And my work investigates the innovative interaction paradigms among humans, technology, and environment. So tackling subjects like climate change, holistic well-being, embodied experiences, and speculative futures. I use mediums such as interaction, data visualization, spatial design, multimedia art, and software and mixed reality. And SpaceV is one of our kind of speculative design where it merges the physical and digital experiences, and also creating visualizations and storytelling around that future. Yan?
Yeah, I'm another multidisciplinary designer based in Boston. I work across R&D labs, residential, public space design, industrial design, and I'm mostly interested in complex modeling, parametric generative geometry, and storytelling by visualization. I've worked with major developers, pharmaceutical giants, and delivering user-centric and high-end products to the market.
Yeah, so we both have our own full-time work as designers, and VLab is this other full-time work that namely our collaborative design practice, where we work together on a lot of shared interests and also creative projects that involve speculative futuring and also experience innovation and just creating hybrid physical and digital experiences. Okay, so our work, SpaceV, It's a digitally enabled space vending system for future well-being in the city. It vends a variety of spaces from individuals to book by the minutes and hours, to exercise, meditate, nap, eat, relax, and so on. And they can customize multisensory quality and supplies through the booking system to suit their needs. And this project serves to meet the fragmented needs for activity and relaxation in everyday city life and support on-the-go private usage of spaces from a holistic, for a holistic physical and mental well-being. So we've designed the physical, digital, and hybrid experiences of the system as part of the vision for space vending. And I'll introduce it into the research process and then followed by some discussions around the introductions around the physical and digital experiences, as well as the multi-channel experiences of this space vending system. So the design research synthesized ideas in the self-service retail model from vending machines to online shops and the need for alternative well-being concept. We turned this design research into inspirations and provocations for SpaceV. So the experience of vending machines is one that's highly individualized and automated. And it's so prevalent in our world today. It has been around as far back as the 1890s, where the automat fast food restaurants was popular. And nowadays, from goods and objects to space rentals, the products that a vending system can facilitate to sell has become increasingly diverse. Think co-working spaces, capsule hotels, public storage, shared mobility, unmanned supermarket, or automotive vending tower and Amazon locker pickup. The variety are just endless. How most of these vending systems work is that users would order their goods, spaces, and services online, and then get randomly assigned a space or a slot fitting their order. They would then enjoy the usage of that space for a finite amount of time. The variety of programs involved in the vending system nowadays can readily support an individual's day-to-day life in a city. They can sleep, store things, work, travel, eat, and shop, all measured by the minutes and hours in these vended space units. On the other hand, we also studied the ways our contemporary idea of wellness works and the resources in the city to support that. So, currently one of those canonical models of wellness in the city is the gym, but we indexed it, the gym pathologies, as we call it, because this is a space where people share a really large environment and they're exposed to others with not a lot of options for individual moments and individuality. So as opposed to self-care, there's actually a underlying motivation for self-consciousness, and also it promotes kind of like a one-sided focus on the physical aspect of health. So we think that the contemporary well-being spaces need to embrace a more holistic health vision by balancing mind-body well-being, serving more casual and spontaneous wellness needs, and becoming part of the everyday experience and look towards the future. Something like as natural as you would do, like stopping by a convenience store on your way home or breathe deeply as you pass on an empty green lawn. It shouldn't mean something so like formal or requires a lot of lift when you have to sign up for like a membership somewhere and then go to that space and then try to keep up like a cadence. It should be something as natural and as unconscious or even just smooth as breathing. So combining unmanned space vending and holistic well-being, we felt like a space vending idea. It's like taking a vending system or an Amazon locker to room scale. And that's where SpaceV takes its name. It's a space rental system as versatile and flexible as Amazon lockers, providing the infrastructure for contemporary well-being. So a space vending destination, in fact, can be programmed in any way, but it makes holistic wellness a perfect use case and can serve to improve an aspect of contemporary lifestyle by offering values to an alternative wellness spaces in the city. So by promoting this shift from let's work out at gym to let's do these different activities that keep us healthy, happy, and energized at SpaceV, this alternative experience not only makes up for what's lacking in existing offerings in urban spaces, but also introduce a brand new experience of an everyday lifestyle in a city that caters to a wider public audience. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it over to Yan to deep dive into the physical experience.
Yeah, thank you. So there are several types of SpaceVs that can be designed at different scale and placed at different parts of the city. Next, please. The site is in Tokyo. We believe the idea will find a perfect home here for the given everyday rhythm around vending system, convenience store, and there is also a unique culture that intersects with intense automation. Next, please. There is a 2-kilometer city highway in the very heart of Tokyo is projected to be demolished. It has Ginza area to the south and Tokyo Station, a major transportation hub around the north. The existing highway looks like this, and by the time it is demolished in 2030s, it's going to leave a long linear threshold of open space amidst the high-rise buildings. And we propose to turn this residual urban space into a linear constellation of parks, sports grounds, several vending buildings along the segment of previous highway. Next, please. So each vending building folds and protects a large field of activities like skateboarding, baseball, and there is also a smaller sunken plaza that protects a green oasis in the middle for the mutual enjoyment of user and meditation lovers. Next, please. So they're really this neighborhood versus flexible enough to take on varying shapes and scale to serve different city blocks. Next, please. Next, please. And the design of the primitive building plan evolved from a series of rooms that weave through the city to its final form. The rooms come in a variety of sizes and shapes, and each of them can accommodate a number of different activities. Next, please. And we think the linear primitive forms can bend into plans to weave into different kind of shapes and corners within the city blocks and become vending building that serve the surrounding neighborhood. Next, please. We can consider them bend into closed loops next, and sunk into ground in several parts of the site for the sunken court surrounded by vending spaces. Thank you. Yeah, keep going.
All right, awesome. Okay, so now let me introduce some digital experience and have like a more close-up look into the digital system that we designed in support of this. So to keep the promise of autonomy and privacy, one of the unique challenge for this project is to design how it would operate with as little human interference as possible at its scale and complexity. So this space is finally kind of divided to diverse purposes that involves both sale of goods and personal occupancy. And it's both a challenge to design a system for reservation and management of this vended space resources, as well as wayfinding into those spaces. So it leads us to discover the possibility of hybrid digital physical method, bringing together kind of the best worlds of both medium of that experience. So this is a view that shows the digital system that facilitates booking as well as customization of a multisensory experience of the rooms. The users can start from like a booking site, and then it will just walk them through the steps where they can customize their experience of this vended space reservation. And then subsequently, when the staff will receive the booking, then they will kind of customize it according to that order. So it's very automatic for the user, and also provide them with an opportunity to kind of define experience that they like that they couldn't otherwise easily get elsewhere. Let's say like not in their workplace, not in their home. So this is a place where they can have some moments of that like customized, personalized experience. So they're picking an activity that they want to do, and that comes with a series of implications of the size of the room and like the setup. They could also add accessories to the experience. They could, for example, add an ambience murmur sound for like a meditation experience in a room. And also they can define the spatial quality of it from like the mood, smell, and define their thermal comfort zone. They could pick a combination of different ingredients to form a unique smell, and then that will translate into an incense that goes kind of into the room and gets dispersed in the room. And also what's the right temperature, what's the right lighting, etc. And to go, I'll even invite a telepresent guest. So here we're imagining that there could be multiple locations of SpaceV across different parts of the world, and then they can connect with someone who are using another part of SpaceV in different parts of the world, and to connect, for example, to have a telepresence game. And here it's configuring, and once this goes through, they can just go to that assigned destination through a little bit of help of the AR wayfinding to find the room that gets assigned to them, and then they would be able to self-serve and check in. So this is a view into how they would start initiate and checking that into that room and start using it. And here's the video that shows what happens when when a new order is received and how the room setup gets changed based on the different requirements of the different users. All right. Next. Okay. So I'll have Ian walk us through a multi-channel experience tale that illustrate the combination of physical and digital experience of this. Yeah.
So to kind of bring back the digital and the physical pieces together. Next slide, please. We kind of imagine an experience story about Haruto, who is a salaryman who is working near Flagship V and lives in a commuter town about 90 minutes away. Next, please. And so we're going to just kind of go through his day and imagine how this product and experience can kind of weave into his day and life and become some kind of new driver for a different lifestyle. So like any other workday, he rides a tram to work terribly early. He caught a glimpse of some SpaceV commercial as the morning sun starts to rise and light up the cabin. By the time he gets to the office, he's already exhausted. As he makes his way through the morning, the plan of taking a midnight nap at SpaceV during the lunch break lifts his spirit. So next, please. So a little past noon, he was guided by his personal in-app avatar to the napping room that he has already booked for him. The room has a delightful scent and sleep-inducing ambience lighting that he has specified in his reservation order. Then he took a rejuvenating nap. After a whole afternoon of endless meeting, he couldn't wait to step out of his office. He's got an important date with his friend at SpaceV. It is a telepresent workout date with his best buddy who recently moved away from Tokyo. And it's always soothing for the mind and body to take a shower after the game before heading on the crowded tram home. The sun had already set. The media screen on the facade of the vending building glows brightly and lights up the night sky. Previous slide, please. Just as he thought he was about to go home, his boss got him back to the office for some overtime working. And by the time he finishes everything, the last train was already gone. So he has to book an overnight sleeping pod inside the Tokyo station. And next, please. And while the city is asleep, all the vending creatures are still wide awake, waiting to service whoever needs them. And as the morning comes, Haruto wakes up right in the center of the city and feeling ready to start a new day again.
Yeah, so that concludes our presentation, and we hope that SpaceV becomes both a vision and also an experience that has a potential for a real kind of experience towards an alternative way of lifestyle and urban experience that really supports a holistic well-being and different kinds of activities for physical and mental well-being, and as well as a self-service automated physical/digital experience. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation. Lots of beautiful visuals. I really like the collages you showed as well. Yeah, I think you can, yeah, there we go. The screen sharing is off now. I see you properly. And as a person who lives also in a big city, I can very much relate to wanting to take a nap in a place. And I think we can all relate to that feeling. So I'm curious about a couple of things, but firstly, I was wondering, how did you two start to collaborate? And also, what was the kind of spark that started SpaceV?
Yeah, I can take that first, and then also let Yan chime in too. So both of us, we met at the Harvard Graduate School of Design as architecture students at that time. And we actually started collaborating together through this very project, because so basically we discovered that we each have very different skill sets and design craft, yet we're also interested in very similar topics and have really like shared design sensibility and taste. So this project, like, since it features kind of like speculative aspect about the future of urban lifestyle and what services and experience blueprint we could design to support that. And I think we started from the idea of a vending machine for space because we're both pretty obsessed with that kind of modern experience of an unmanned retail and automated process, and just the general industrial and economic aesthetics in life. And we're also quite like relevant thinkers. I think that's something that like really, that's something that echoes between the both of us, is that we want to embrace the contemporary context where people are looking for, you know, a lot of convenience and personalization. We don't just want to stay at the, like, in the clouds, like speculative level. We want to have something that like reaches the needs and feasibility of the kind of the current age. So being a software and interaction designer nowadays, like mostly designing digital product myself, like I feel quite interested in what's that digital experience that's facilitating this physical service. And whereas Ian leaning more into like the spatial and like physical side has more of like an capability and imagination into like what the space actually shapes like, and what's that like how to bring that like that vision to life through really like high fidelity and polished visualizations. And together we kind of tell the stories. Yeah. You have anything else?
Right. Yeah. So we're just curious about the experience of using or through a mobile application and start to interact with physical things. Like, it's common experience to interact with smaller objects, appliances, gadgets, but what does it mean when we start to use a mobile application to interact with physical space? What does that mean? Does it create a new building new space, or does it create new mobile applications? So that's also something that we were very curious about at the beginning of the project.
Yeah.
This phygital space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Physical and digital. Yeah, super interesting to hear a bit more about that. It sounds like a really fruitful collaboration. And we also learned a bit more about your research process through the presentation. I was also wondering, and we got a question about this, if you also did interviews and that kind of user research. And also, it seems like the case was geared towards Japan. So if that's true, how come you chose Japan as your case? Or did you think of it more as a universal need for all big cities? Yeah, how did both Tokyo come into it, and how did the research process look?
I can maybe first talk a little bit about, I'll start from the Tokyo context. There are a couple reasons, like first of all, we definitely want intent SpaceV to be a system and sort of like a modular, to embrace a modular idea where it can fit in a variety of urban contexts, not just like big buildings in Tokyo, but also existing urban structures and context, and can fit like smaller modules into it. And then I think overall, the context of large cities and metropolis is where we sort of envision this SpaceV be most relevant. And Tokyo just comes as a sort of like a canonical example of that kind of metropolis and city. So we think that it illustrates the context where SpaceV feel more at home with the best. And similarly, there are other metropolis across the globe that could adopt this kind of SpaceV vending experience and service. But for this project alone, like we think that there's some merit about being specific of a location, so that we can flush out all of the aspects of that experience and design situated in like a specific context. And so aside from that, we are really deeply inspired by this vending model. And then what comes to mind, we were thinking about like a vending machine. This is Japan. So that's another reason why this becomes sort of like the quote unquote flagship prototype or flagship experience of SpaceV. And then also, I guess the kind of urban problems, and then also the scale of cities it's in Tokyo is like also really fit for this experience type. So yeah, there's a lot of context around like the urban fabric, how streets and how people navigate the city, and how automation and transportation comes into play for people to access this kind of provisions in the city. So that would be some of my like reasons I think why we picked Tokyo. And in terms of research, we did a lot of design research in the sense that it's like an explorational process where we were able to, through the design research, which includes speaking to like relevant people like that we know, to understand what are the needs and flavors of experience that they would attract to. And then especially people that we know have like experience living in big cities around the world, like New York or like Hong Kong, and also Tokyo. And we also referenced like examples from the web, and then also most recently there's a project around kind of reimagining like IKEA stores in like Tokyo. So that's also something that we kind of treat it as an inspiration. And then that's an integral part of the design research that we do. Like, it's not like, like rigorous kind of like market research or like user testing. I think we're not at that stage yet. If we go more into that digital experience or physical like flow, then like, yes, we're gonna like test the specifics of that experience. But for the conception of this project, we really embrace design research as a way of inspiration and also discovering user needs. What are those key moments, like pain points that we really want to address? And we just come up with then like solutions to solve for that. And then the next level would be, okay, like, does that really make sense? This is what you really expected. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to the discussion, I think there are like three things I want to mention. The first is that we think it needs a lot of density of population that we have to capture around this facility. It has a lot of functions, it has a lot of space to fill, so it makes sense to have it in a very dense urban area. It's probably not going to work as well in suburban, I believe. And the second thing is that we did a research. We have a lexicon of a lot of similar experience and potential precedent. We looked at capsule hotel. We look at automated restaurants in US. We look at a lot of unmanned retail. We look at a lot of things, and it feels like many of these happened in Tokyo. So there is already a kind of understanding, and it's in general well received in that cultural realm. So it probably makes sense to say that it's safe to assume this prototype is going to work under that context. And the third is that the project was conceived during the COVID time. That's a time when people were really rethinking about how much interaction we want to have with other people and other projects and other objects. So I think we were definitely under influence at that time, and we have to acknowledge it. Of course, everything is reopened, but a lot of the promising features and qualities are still pretty valid at this point, like health, like personal mental wellness. I just want to take a break. I just want to take a nap. All these questions are still out there.
Sure. I think it makes sense very much that Tokyo is the flagship, from what I know about Tokyo also. One thing that also popped out to me is the fact that it seems to be a lot of sort of solo activities that you can do through the app, and that it has as little human interference as possible, you mentioned. So I was also thinking about the fact that we're in a state where a lot of people are feeling lonely and longing for connection. Of course, the pandemic was a different time because we couldn't be together. But now I'm wondering if this is also something you thought about in your research, especially in big cities. I think that people, the other research is showing that people are feeling a need for connection. And if this was something you considered, how did it feed into your concept?
Yeah, we also mentioned that the center idea of the project is having some kind of space that's available for reservation in various scale and various purposes. So one thing we talked about is that we can also book a larger room for, I don't know, for 6 people, just have a party or have a meeting. And there is also availability of outdoor space near the facility that's also available for reservation. So I think what we want to promote is not necessarily individualized space or individualized everything. It's more like an opportunity to reserve a certain space according to very specific need and the ability to customize these spaces.
Yeah. Also, we think that, so, large cities, there are so many crowds, but just being physically in the vicinity of other people doesn't create the feeling of togetherness. And that's the case, and that exactly because of that kind of phenomena, like people feel still feel lonely in big cities. So with SpaceV, we want to create the opportunity for people to form intentional groups and doing intentional activities and being intentional about getting together. And that's where this meaningful moments of togetherness are actually taking place. So because we kind of have this modular kind of scheme of how the spaces fit together, it also very much, fit larger groups, larger people, and then we can also, create indoor and outdoor provisions for SpaceV, like an indoor room or outdoor room that's larger for people to be able to get together in a very intentional way. And we think that that's a moment where they can really have the opportunity to meet other people and then interact together. Yeah.
Yeah, so I see it really is both like the individual as well as tailored to if you want to meet and connect, then you can also do that. Another thought that I had, which is perhaps thinking a little bit skeptically about society, but also if you have closed rooms that people rent that are private, did you also consider how to keep these spaces safe on this level of the project in terms of, all the naughty things that people might want to use the space for, and how to kind of regulate around that without invading people's privacy? Is that something you considered as well?
Well, I would offer my kind of 2 points of input. I feel like, rather than kind of shoving under the table and just like not mention it, or having like a hard rule of like not do this or that, I think SpaceV offers an opportunity for us to guide actions and provide the opportunity and space for people to accommodate those needs. And if they can, there's an inherent kind of flexibility in the spaces that SpaceV could provide. And then what if we, although it's not in this presentation or it's not in the examples that we've shown of the type of activities that are sort of provided, we could also, consider the space as a blank canvas and design for those needs to accommodate responsible and intentional usage for those purposes. Yeah.
I think on one hand, it really builds some kind of precedence already there. So we have seen there are unmanned noodle places in Japan. There are also internet cafe where people can spend the night, and I think they're relatively successful. That's one thing. So we are probably not entirely concerned about it. And the second thing is that thinking about examples like Uber or Airbnb, if nasty things happen, there are potential ways that stops the user from making another reservation, or there could be a system of giving feedback or potentially grading users. So I think there are multiple ways to address it. It just not necessarily have to happen in that physical space. It could be a digital intervention as well.
Yeah, sure. That's some examples that have also faced those kinds of problems that have overcome them. So yeah, it's a good point. And keep the questions coming from the audience. We had one question from Franco Gomez dos Santos, who's an interaction designer, wondering about the research again, and if it shed light on something unknown about the ethnography of Japan. Any new consumer insights?
So we want to offer the perspective of the working population in Japan, that there's actually a pretty strong cultural draw. There's a lot of non-native Japanese or foreigners working in Japan, but it seems that a little different from sort of the American context that both of us are currently based in. It becomes like people, the way that they work with their lifestyle gets assimilated into how kind of the Japanese context a lot. And then also there's a lot of people working in Tokyo, but then there's all these like satellite towns outside of Tokyo where people live. And then takes really long time to commute back and forth. And we've already seen a lot of kind of vending type of services popping up in places like the subway station, or like the platform that's like right on top of it. Or usually it's in places where like people come and go, like pass by a lot, and then you can see some of those like tiny little capsules. It almost look like a phone booth that provide some kind of spaces, not comfortable. It's like the bare minimum for people to like take a nap or just rest. And there's like the charging stations inside too. So those are sort of things we already see like early signals of those kind of needs being attempted to met in public locations like that. And I think that's an important insight for us both to support sort of the confidence and like feasibility and viability of this idea, but also just like inspire us to like how could it make it better? And there's even like more worthy ways that this could develop into.
Yeah, there are two things I want to add. One is I think under that context, there are two things that feels a little bit different. One is that it feels like it's okay and it's perceived okay to be tired or to take a nap. While here, if I just start to take a nap in the middle of the day, someone will definitely ask me, am I okay? Am I sick or anything? It's probably not the case in Japan. And I'm thinking about a recent project, the Nest Cafe in Harajuku, also in Tokyo. They launched standing sleeping pods. So people can just stay there, take a seat and take a 30-minute power nap for $6, I believe. So that's another example of the culture. Right. And the second thing is that we think another thing that probably works there is because the demand is very fragmented. Like Tiange mentioned, there are a lot of people who work there. There are a lot of visitors there. There are a lot of visitors from outside Japan. So it kind of makes us to think how to design a really versatile space that can really answer to all kinds of demand there.
Yeah, and then also another thing that that just reminds me of about Japan is that like there's the underlying culture of like being okay with being alone, and then there's actually like meditative and like sort of Zen aspect of like about it that it's like ours. We feel like the dominant kind of voice is we're like in a society, it's like we're celebrating the merit of interpersonal interaction a lot. We're talking about getting together, and well, that is like has a lot of merit, and that's definitely true. There's a culture there in Japan where people are used to being alone by themselves, and then that becomes like sort of an existing condition for us to create just like better spaces to meet those moments and meet those needs. And then also just want to dial up like how we're acknowledging that there is positive emotional and like mental benefit of those moments. And then we also just want to surface that and actively try to meet that.
Yeah, super interesting. The cultural context is very relevant in your case. And I've also heard recently about, I can't remember if it was Japan or another country where you could fall asleep in a meeting and it's also not considered necessarily disrespectful. It's just you're tired. And it's so different. It's fascinating. And so you have different needs to meet in different places for sure. We got another question here, which relates more to the feasibility and business model. How would it work on a more practical level, since changing environment seems very costly? Have you thought about this? I'm sure you have. How goes the process here?
We don't have a pro forma for this project, so unfortunately, but the way we think it will work will probably be very similar to capsule hotels. So you pay for what you need, and it's very flexible. It doesn't bind you to specific lengths. You don't need to book 24 hours if you just need a 2-hour nap. And of course, it will just charge you for the amount of space that you took, amount of customization you want to impose on the space. Yeah, I don't know, Tiange, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think by studying existing models like the capsule hotels and finding synergies between like successful business models like that give us sort of early confidence about the viability of this system. And then also we are flexible about the scale of this system by like we already kind of actively like explicitly stating like the SpaceV scale can be as small as like a unit, and it can be as big as a building. So there's a lot of opportunity to find like a soft entry point into the system by not starting with something that is like huge. Yeah.
So starting smaller.
Yeah.
What did you want to add there, Yang?
No, I was thinking it's interesting when we start to think about space or the volumetric quantity as a commodity, because it wasn't really, people don't really think about, you know, the size of the space as volume. It's usually just area, but it's actually a 3-dimensional image, like Minecraft. You know, it's you can have 1 cubic, 2 cubic, 2 cubic, or as large as like 10 cubic. And it's for space, it's probably slightly easier to really quantify like how much volume someone needs.
So in terms of not area, but yeah, volume, looking at it three-dimensionally. Yeah. Interesting. And then having, so it would be perhaps a different payment scale per person, per activity, per unit of space, basically.
Yeah, and also there's another potential of revenue but I don't really just, you know, there's things that we need to consider to not have it sort of overshadow the experience, is that because there's so many different units, could some of them be sponsored by or like made in collaboration with selected brands that offers, let's say, you know, there are a lot of accessories or supplies that comes with the provision of a space for a specific activity. Then could we collaborate with like a potential, like an existing brand to kind of curate that experience, or you know, have one of those modules be taken care of by a brand where they can put their you know, their own identity onto it. But that's like an idea that I don't feel like it needs to be if it's exercised, it needs to be in like a controlled way, because we don't want this to be turned into like a big advertised structure, you know.
Sure. Yeah, it brings me to talking a little bit more about your future plans for SpaceV, which I was curious about, and we also had a question more specifically around what technologies you're excited about creating, changing spatial experience, and which tech will be coming up in the future. So I suppose even since you started on the concept, so much has happened also with AI. Yeah, what do you guys see for SpaceV in the future? What are you excited about when it comes to tech?
A lot. Yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, so much has happened, and I think my answer to this would, part of it would kind of be based on sort of the reason, like our recent work and stuff that we came across in the space of AI and mixed reality, much more so than when we were initially considering and crafting the project. So there are a couple things. I think AI could really facilitate in this, like I think the intense kind of self-service and automated nature could really be a lot of it. The back end could be led by AI in terms of coordination, management, organization of resources, allocation, and all that. And then on the front end, AI could really introduce like a persona into the service, and then also like just help people walk them through the booking experience in a much more intelligent, smart way, instead of having the user to step through so many steps to customize it. AI could streamline that process. And also maybe the experience could be much more conversational in a way that that's more natural to the way that humans are like interacting and receiving information. Like, what if instead of like an AR wayfinding, it's like a voice that's guiding you? And we're also recently very interested in this idea of the kind of the multimodal interaction and what might be like a screenless way of interaction that's enabled by AI, because the like the hip cycle of, let's say, like the chat GPT, it reduces the interaction back to like a terminal computer console kind of experience. And we wonder if there's a way where we could let go of those like more complex interfaces, or and then have the experience be more customized to what the user needs, instead of telling the digital app to like word by word what they need. Could it just kind of flow the user through that experience based on what they know about the user? Yeah.
Would it be then through like speech rather than screens when you say screenless, so that you're like talking to the AI? Is that how you envision it?
Yeah, so one of the ways that this could be done through speech. And then also, there are situations where you kind of just don't want to say things out loud, then you kind of still have to rely on like a screen, but then less intense engagement with the screen. So I think, how do we provide that experience and guidance in a more structured way than something that like a whole huge chunk of text that they have to read through, or like an endless form that they have to like continue to like step through in order to customize that. Yeah.
Super interesting. Yeah. Did you want to add something there?
Yeah, I'm also interested in the entire opposite direction of what Tiange just said. The screen is so large that it covers the entire room. And in some kind of AIGC is able to fill those screens like with content that it doesn't feel like a screen or device anymore. It starts to feel like that digital experience is now the spatial experience. Like thinking about that, the new stadium in Las Vegas, or the bedroom scene in 2001 Space Odyssey. There's a bedroom scene where all the tiles are glow, and which makes the interior feel so flat and thin, almost feel like it's represented by some kind of 2D surfaces. Maybe that's one thing. So we don't really have people going into these rooms and start to rearrange and decorate these rooms according to demand. People walk in, people talk about things or think about things, and so all of a sudden, their room becomes, exactly that how that people would think it would be, through a 360-degree panoramic screen representation.
Super. So from screenless to all screen,
All
you
screen,
know,
yes.
excited in both directions. Yeah.
Just to add a little bit, I know we're almost at time. So I think the synergy between this is just to stay more true to the natural way that people like interact with things, like the spatial kind of like enveloping or like that scale is just how we physically exist in that room and actually be able to interact with it. Or if it's screenless, it's just like if you do something with like gesture or some voice, that's also how like the kind of like interactive device that we own. So that's the kind of direction that we're a lot of times like this happens when we're like interested in like different directions, and then we find synergy between it.
Yeah. I think you sort of already answered this with what you just said, but we had a question just now as a final question before we wrap up. In your experience, do you think MR, so mixed reality, will play a mainstream role in the future, or will we long even more for real experiences? I'm adding these because, I think that we're already at a stage where we can question what real is, but it would be great to hear your thoughts on where we're headed. Yeah.
I think from like an user experience standpoint, the hardware device of a mixed reality would play a pretty important role, whether mixed reality would become sort of a mainstream experience to people. Because I think at the current stage, with the headset, or like a mediating device like the phone where you're gonna like hold it up to do anything, it's hard to see it as like like a fully kind of commercialized product experience if the hardware that it's not there yet when it's like in a way.
I think there are two parts to this question, right? The first is if we really like that perfect imaginary AR, VR, MR scenario, I think yes, we do. And the second part is that how long would it take for the hardware and the technology to really make that a reality? That's another question, because we know we have those goggles, and we know it gets hot, it gets sweaty, it's heavy, the battery runs out. There are a lot of hurdles that has to be overcome to eventually get to how we originally conceived that experience. But we are probably close. We recently watched the interview by Zuckerberg and Lex Friedman, and they were in this goggle, and they were so photorealistically illustrated in those screen share sessions. It feels amazing. We are moving very fast, and we'll probably get there sooner than we originally thought.
Yeah, for sure. It's super speed, and that's a good tip for everyone who's curious about this topic, is to watch this. Is it a new interview? Just came out?
Yeah, it's pretty recent.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're going to have to wrap up, but I think that's a super interesting topic and conversation, and perhaps we will have to do a part 2, also see what happens in the future with SpaceV, and follow up and learn more from you guys. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk today. Thanks for everyone who joined in and asked questions. yeah, if you missed the beginning of the talk or want to rewatch it, it will be, it's recorded and will be on our website as well as on LinkedIn shortly. And do join us soon again. Next week, we will present a conversation with the jury member Matthias Schmidbauer and Ake Rudolf, who is the head of strategy at IDZ and UX Design Awards. Stay tuned. Yeah, follow us on LinkedIn and social. And once again, thanks Tiange and Huang, and until next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.